Hello everyone, this is Kris Keys and I want to share with you one of my favorite shops that I discovered during my last visit to Tokyo. This shop is called Pigment Tokyo, and if you are a sucker for color like I am, then you would love this shop. So they have probably every hue and tone of every color within their shop in powder pigment form. So I knew I had to visit the shop and pick me up a few pigments so that I can come home and experiment. If you are in Tokyo, if you plan to visit Tokyo, I suggest booking a workshop, which I hate I didn't do in advance, but they have workshops teaching you how to use their watercolors and how to mix their watercolors. So I didn't get a chance to do that. So I'm just going to eyeball and kind of experiment, and you'll be experimenting with me on mixing these colors. So I picked up two colors. One was in Oriental blue and the other one was in red velvet. I'm just going to take this small Chinese dish and mix together just a little bit of my gum Arabic medium, which is how you activate it, with probably a dime-sized amount of the powder. So I'm just putting a few drops in here. In the shop, and if you have seen any of their videos, they do mix together the colors pretty flat with glass, but I'm just going to use my brush and see what kind of results we get. So I'm just putting a small amount of powder, and I'll show you up close just the amount of powder to gum Arabic medium. Alright, so not a lot at all. So I've started to mix it together with a brush. You can see that it's really vibrant. It almost looks like a cobalt blue, and you really have to mix it together really well because the powder almost wants to just settle on the top of the gum Arabic medium. But once I really started to mix it together, I just got a smooth consistency, and it was pretty much comparable to the consistency of a tube watercolor paint. Alright, so I'm just going to be painting these flowers using a wet to wet technique. So you can see that I'm wetting the paper first, and I've started to put down my color using a Japanese calligraphy brush in the area that I've wet. So you can see that it is very true to its name. It does look like an Oriental blue. In the dish, it does come out looking a little bit darker. Like I said, it looks like a cobalt blue in a dish, but on paper it looks like a really beautiful Oriental blue. I was really impressed by these colors. Now, if you've seen a lot of my videos on YouTube, then you know that I usually use inks. So inks have more of a flow. These don't have as much as a flow, but it still gives that really fluid, dreamy, like plump watercolor effect. And you can see that you can get different shadows, hues, and tones by just using different pressures of the brush. So when I'm towards the middle of the flower petal, I'm pressing my brush down harder, and then as I'm going out towards the edges, I'm lightening up my grip so you can get that really like faded out effect for the watercolors. And if I visit the shop again, which I will visit the shop again, but I will probably get a few pastel colors and then just get a few basic darker colors, maybe just some primary colors, to be honest, just so I can mix them together, because I got two darker colors. If I mix this red and this blue, it probably won't turn out too nice. So I'm just taking this black ink. This is by Yasutomo. I've put some water in the middle of my flowers, and I'm literally just using a stippling motion and letting this black ink spread. So this is a nice mixture with the inks mixed together with the watercolors. The watercolors are a little bit more solid. The inks are more fluid. So this is a really beautiful outcome. So I'm just taking the tip of my brush. I'm really using a line technique, and this is also called a dry to dry technique. So I'm just taking my medium and putting it on dry paper. No water is used at all for this part. And I really like mixing together the wet to wet technique with the dry to dry technique, because once you use the dry medium on the paper, you get all these really nice brush strokes, as you can see. So the second to last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take some gouache paint and I'm just putting a few dots of color on the flower. I like negative space on my flowers. If my flowers are overworked and everything is filled and there's no white space, I don't like it. So I always try to put in a few stipples of white gouache paint, or you can use white acrylic paint or white out or a white calligraphy pen or a gel pen or whatever you want to use, just to add some more depth and some more 3D feel to the flower. Okay, so the last thing that I'm doing, I'm taking a brush that I picked up in Japan as well from a store called Cicado, and I'll leave a link to that shop below. If you are in Tokyo, I suggest that shop as well. But this is a metallic gold pen. It's a brush ink pen, and it is very, very, very fluid. I use a lot of brush pens with watercolors, so they're just pens that you can put inks or watercolors inside, and this is probably the most fluid and fine tip brush that I have ever tried. And another thing that I really like about this brush is that when it dries true to its color. So it's not like a metallic pen that dries lighter and it just looks like a brown or something. It dries looking metallic. So I'll be using this a lot, and I suggest using this once you let your flower paintings or whatever type of watercolor paintings you do, once you let them dry, take the metallic pen and go on top of it, add more details. If you want to do a watercolor painting and add some lettering with this metallic pen, like calligraphy, if you're into that, this would be a beautiful pen to do it. And I'll try to find a link to this brush and leave that in the description box below as well. Maybe you can purchase it online. So you can see that I'm doing the same thing using a dry technique, adding in a few lines, using a line drawer on the very tip of the brush. And that's pretty much our flower painting. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be back with more videos next week. Please subscribe and like this video so that you won't miss out on more painting tutorials. See you next week. Ciao.